Good day, everybody, and thank you all so very much for yet again being part of our current event, which is Creative Juneteenth 2021. My name is Dedren Snead, founder of Subsume, fellow writer and fellow creative, who is excited for the next hour that we'll get a chance to spend with some of the most brilliant writing minds you're going to find around as we talk about the way of Silk and Stone, being able to talk about my personal passion project that I'm happy to share with Sage with and a creative diaspora of talent with so many creatives out there that it's just so much that we're going to fill the stage with talent and amazement here shortly. So what we'll be talking about is our fantasy series here with Subsume called Sorghum and Spear. Where Sorghum and Spear is an African fantasy that I wrote as a kid, wanting to find myself included in fantasy and role playing games. So from a passion of Ravenloft and Dragonlance and Dark Sun, I created a fantasy world of women who fight against an army of monsters, and particularly talk about the young girls who, due to their age of innocence, are looking to use their powers of sisterhood and friendship to somehow save their world. And with that, we've had a successful Kickstarter campaign twice. Well, we've had a original prequel book, graphic novel, and now looking at bringing the world of Sorghum and Spear into a new anthology. And with that, we'll bring on our extremely talented editor. I want to bring her to the stage here now. I apologize in advance because I think I could have a whole section to give this young lady her credits and absolute praises that are all due. So right now we have an award-winning short story writer, poet, and editor. Her current works inspired by myths and folklore, natural science, and the Mississippi Delta, 9-bar blues, stories from an ancient future is her premiere debut right now. We know her for her legacy work of Dark Matter, also Fire, also now editor of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, and so many great works with BSAM and her own creative endeavors. Please help me welcome Miss Sheree Renee Thomas. Sheree, it's a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Dedren. It's an honor to be here. I'm very happy to introduce these amazing writers. But first, I just want to say you have an awesome origin story for this wonderful collection. And I just think it's beautiful that a dream or a vision that you had when you were a child could be created and brought into the world and shared later. And so that's what this is about. So thank you so much for this. It has been a pleasure to read the stories of Sorghum and Spear. And I just want to say that the writers that you have gathered are just fantastic. We have a foreword from Nisi Shaw, the award-winning author and editor, and also community activist and organizer, Nisi Shaw. We also have beautiful poetry from Linda Addison, which is going to set the whole collection off. Just wonderful. We have amazing art and the design. There is a glossary so readers can immerse themselves into the world of the Anfrey and the eternal realm. It's going to be amazing. So thank you.
As always, you honor me and not only with your work, but with your example. So it makes it easy to see myself included in a future of speculative fiction. When folks like yourself have shown such a blazing path we can all take. So with that, I want to thank you for that. Likewise, as we get ready to bring this plethora of talent to the stage, just know that this is just a sample of a fantastic group of writers from around the world who've done us a great honor to take some of their time to write stories that fit so seamlessly into the world of Arunaye. And as we talk about the Anfrey women and the promise of Silk and Stone, we want to go ahead and bring them in and get a chance to hear some brilliance. So with that, I'm going to give the stage over to you as I bring our writers to the stage and offer a way to the way of Silk and Stone. So I'll do that now.
Wow.
All right, with a tip of the hat, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sheree. Thank y'all so very much.
Right. We wanted you to hear some of the magic that I've been living with all this time and all these writers have been living with. So, without any further um, introductions, Valjean Jeffers.
Good evening, everyone. My story is Pray for Peace, Prepare for War. And this is a very brief excerpt. Awake! Dekelada's terrified cry, Namazi could not ignore. The sorghum field, sister! Namazi bolted awake, jumped from bed, and ran outside, still in her nightshirt. From a distance, she could see white smoke in the fields. But this smoke was alive. It leaped and bounded through the stalks. Namazi threw her head back and screamed in an undulating wail. Instantly, the women of the Eternal awoke, ready for battle. Namazi's sisters rushed to her side, the three linked hands, and shut their eyes. Spears appeared in the other and free women's hands. When Namazi and her sisters opened their eyes, their orbs were black. They took off toward the field, their legs pumping in preternatural speed. And with a battle cry, the warrior women followed, surging forward as one.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Givens Kurtz.
My story is called Hima's Test, and I am Nicole Givens Kurtz. So, a brief excerpt. Faster than sound, faster than Hima thought she could go. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed fire. It ripped and burned as if seared by a red hot iron. Her tongue swept across the roof of her mouth, attempting to soothe the savage heat with what remained of the spit in her mouth. Tears streamed down her smooth cheeks and flung themselves into the sandy ground. It's too close. The Akibu had gotten way too close. As the demon chased, its mouth ready to devour her, Hema thought that punching it and sending it spiraling backwards should have been enough to give her room, distance. Instead, the demon rose in shock and fury, surprised at her strength. It had howled in pain, alerting the others. At the same time, she inhaled a tiny bit of its hazy aura, and now her entire mouth was aflame. The ocean's wind rustled her braids. She ignored it. She glanced down and stretched out her hands. Half moons littered her palms. Behind her, the Abiku's high-pitched giggling rose above the wind's whistling. She swallowed the searing ache in her throat and ran faster. With her thighs burning, her belly bouncing, she fled. She dipped around trees, over embedded rocks, and down coconuts. Her breath rushed in, fueling the fire in her throat. The demon's flames entered her mouth, raced down her and into her lungs. With her heartbeat roaring in her ears, she squared her wide shoulders and bellowed, "I won't stop."
Thank you. Eugen Bacon.
Hi, my story is called Nyamizi, the skinless one. So she's an albino, and it's a short tale about a child of two worlds, and she must find her destiny. Nyamizi is good with the arrow, bending the vushale just right before release. She's now perfect with a spear, but wonders if her weapons are enough to keep away an army of demons. Her mother did best to prepare her for the outside world. Stepping out of the cave, Nyamizi hadn't expected it to be surrounded by the worlds of her mother's stories. Tall palm trees with shiny leaves, pregnant with water, golden sand that warms toes, God-perfect waters filled with memory. That perfection is the world of the holy city, not here. Outside is worse than Nyamizi expected. It's dark and wet and full of smells. It's a horrible place to die, especially alone. After a night of following the sound of rain, she succumbs to sleep. There, her dreams become flesh. take on faces of long-haired warriors battling ruby-eyed beasts far older than time. Nyamizi stands entranced, wide-eyed and watching. She beholds the beauty of war, the longing to guard and protect in a clink of swords, a whiz of arrows that look at you in the eye and make widows and orphans.
Kenisha Williams.
Hi, I'm Kenisha Williams, and I'll be reading from my story, The Rhythm of War. Before I existed, there was dance. After I am gone, there will be dance. Whether we are in chains or free, dance will exist. My mother said she knew I would be lithe and quick on my feet from the way I moved in her womb. She said that any time there was a rhythm or a beat, she could feel my vibrations matching the time. I was born to be a dancer, but in these uncertain times, I was called to be a fighter. Are you not excited? My sister Arjana asked. She's too young to fear war and thinks that going to the citadel like going to a party. I thank the All-Mother she was not called as I was. I watch her as she hops on one foot and then the other, making footprints in the red dust as she waits for my answer. I feel as if my throat is tightening and I will choke. My heart starts to beat erratically and I think about her question. I wasn't excited. I was scared for my life. I had only had one love in my life, a girl from the next village down named Sasanyu. Her name meant the happy one, and it fit her well, as any dress she wore on her beautiful frame. We would meet at the border and tell each other our secrets and our dreams. I prayed that one day one of us would be the vessel for our future daughters and we would be a family. Then she was called away to the citadel. It had been a year to the day since I last saw Sasanyu, and now I too am being called. I know not if she is alive or dead, know nothing of her labors since our time apart. There have been no letters sent and no sign that she's received mine. Is it possible that she still lives and her heart no longer beats for mine? I will know the answer soon and am as afraid of it as I am for the ending of my life. I have prayed to the All-Mother that she is alive, but sometimes I wonder what would be a worse fate, a world without Sasanyu in it, or a world in which she no longer has love for me. I know it is a selfish thought and I am ashamed for it. Surely there is a logical reason why she has not contacted me.
Thank you. Thank you. Violet Meyer.
The name of my story is Zoe the Unexpected. Slowly, she opens her eyes again to survey her surroundings. Brown earth enclosed her balled up body in every direction. Chin to knees, she tries to turn towards the light. Small rocks pressing into her delicate obsidian skin. She manages to lift her arm enough to exert the fingers into a jagged crack and begin to claw. Claw like badger blood flowed through her veins, like the tips of her fingers were indestructible. The small hole expands easily, soil falling away in crumbling curtains. Within minutes, she is able to force her head and shoulder out of the hollow like a baby breaking through the birth canal.
Alicia McCalla.
My story is Heartsong and Blade. Every 25 years, there is a divinity cycle in the elders' village. They celebrate the festival of Heartsong and Blade. Twins come from miles around to be selected. Magically bonded twins are rare indeed, because one is always a formidable barbarian and the other an exceptional wielder of magic. When bonded, they are unstoppable. On the battlefield, with the magic bearer using the heart song to boost the strength of the barbarian. They destroy 20 demons at one time. The elders are always careful to select one twin pair who win many competitive events, but who importantly show each other the deepest respect. 3 twin pairs remained in the final festival race. Zev didn't care about the other competitors. Her single goal was to defeat her twin and be first. Zev was the oldest of the twins. Being first was her birthright, and besides, she was tired of everyone saying what a joy it was for Zola to be around and how graceful Zola was when she won. Yes, they'd made it to the final race, but in Zev's opinion, Zola relied on magic too much and used it to win all of other competitive events. Brute strength was what was more important to the winds, but it was always an afterthought to Zola's amazing magical feats. Zev loved her twin, but geez, the village treated Zola like she was a reincarnation of the Great Mother.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Your voices are so distinctive, and yet the common thing for each of you is the beauty of your writing. The beauty of the writing. That's what struck me. Dedren created this huge, amazing world, this realm of strong, powerful women and girls coming of age. The stories that you've created tell tales of family, sisterhood, intergenerational tales. It isn't just about fighting, defending your nation, defending yourself, defending your culture. It is also about discovering what it is you need to overcome inside of yourself. Each of you created characters that are memorable and distinctive, and so many vivid descriptions. I felt like I was there with the wind going through my hair. The descriptions you did are just wonderful. So I would like to pose a question for you as we talk about the work that you've created in this shared universe that you are building individually and together for this wonderful collection. How did you approach that call? How did you decide to orient yourself in this huge world? Where did you begin? What is your process? If anyone would like to just get us started, that would be wonderful.
I can start. When Dedren invited me to write a story for Sorghum and Spear, I was really excited because I think anything African and going back to my roots, my stories are usually of memory and longing, and this just really got me. I wasn't very sure what I wanted to write about, but I knew that I wanted to write a story of motherhood and a child. I wanted to focus on the child and a child who's an other, displaced, and that's why the concept of Nyamizi being the skinless one, being an albino, so to the people, she was a person of no skin, became a natural story. And I had to write it in such a way that eventually she would need to go on a journey. And so it meant that in a way, her mother would need to die so that Nyamizi would then find her place in the world. And so that's part of my story, and just the excitement with which I approached it. It was a really easy story to write. Some stories are really hard, like it's a lot of work, but this one told itself. I just really immersed myself into it.
And just for our audience, can you tell them a little bit about where you are in the world?
Yes. So I am in Melbourne. I am an African Australian. I was born in Tanzania in East Africa, and I grew up in Kenya because my father worked in Kenya. And then I moved to the UK and lived there for a while, and my son was born there. And then I moved to Melbourne. So I am a multicultural person, and I have a lot of hybridity. And so that hybridity and the otherness, and that sometimes that sense of not belonging tends to infuse itself into my writing.
Thank you so much, Eugen. Wonderful. Hi, would anyone else like to add to that or talk about how you approached writing an original short story for this wonderful anthology?
I'll jump in. So my story is about a relationship between two women that started in their village, and then one goes away, and then the other one is also recruited. And there is an underlying theme about PTSD in the story, because people don't think about when you go to war or when you're training for war, that you can become a different person a lot of times. War changes you, preparing for war changes you. And that's what happens to one of them, and they're trying to get back to the person that they loved before. Is that same person there? And I always tell people this is a funny story. So I'm an Army recruit that never got to be in the Army. I couldn't make weight. So so I never got to actually be in the military, but I had done all the signups, did the test to get in, and was able to get in, except for not being able to make weight. I have a very military family, and my cousin actually has seen a lot of combat. And I was talking to his wife, and she was saying that when he came back from Afghanistan, she was almost afraid of him because he was a different person. He couldn't sleep at night. He would wake up. He was very paranoid, all of those things. And I think sometimes war in movies and media is glorified, and they don't talk about the effects of the people you leave behind or the people you come back to when that happens. So I wanted to touch on that in my writing.
I can what Kenisha just said it's just very important. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. So I understand, and I am a decorated war veteran. So I do understand war. And my son was in the Navy before we lost him to sea. So a lot of people don't really understand the military. And I think those are very important things that she just said about PTSD. As far as my story is concerned, I decided to write about sisters. I hope my sisters don't watch this because I kind of used them. We had sibling rivalry. And so I actually did twins. I don't have a twin, but I do have, my sisters are about 10 and 12 years younger than me. And so there's always kind of this push-pull between sisters. And so I decided to take two twins. One is light and one is or albino and one is dark. And the dark one is the barbarian, and she's aggressive, and she is feels like brute strength is the way to go. And the other is magic and light and fluffy, and everybody just loves her. And so this really is a basic story of jealousy. One sister is jealous of the other, and they have to learn how to respect one another. And what does that look like? I think that's very important, even though I started talking about my own sisters. But I think as African-American women, we can find ourselves sometimes jealous of our own sisters, jealous of her because she's got this hair, or because she looks this way, or she thinks she's this way, or she's got this husband, or she's got this girlfriend, or she dresses this way. It's pure foolishness. We need to learn how to respect each other. And so that's what my story is about.
I think it's important to have examples of sisterhood, because there is a active portrayal of that cattiness and antagonistic attitudes that you see in media for Black women that isn't actually all that accurate. We need more examples of positive sisterhood, and I like that your story features that. My story is called He Must Test, and what I wanted to do was write a story about a fat Black woman or girl doing something marvelous, because I'm fat and I've been fat my whole life, and fat, according to other people. I've been a chunky girl my entire life. And I remember being picked last because people didn't think I was athletically capable. And so He Must Test is about, it's a fairy tale. She's in love with the Baron, the Lord's or Lord, the woman, the royal lady in charge of the so he is test go against these prove that she initially her
Okay, Nicole, we think we lost you a little bit.
I think that's an important part of
Okay, so we've lost Nicole for a moment. We'll have her return and have her audio and have her repeat some of that. It was really wonderful part of her comments about he must test. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to add to that? How did you come to your story? How did you approach writing your original story for the anthology?
When I approached it, and I began to create, I saw it as kind of a community of women, strong, powerful, magical, but at the same time besieged from the outside by these evil forces. And to me, it's analogous to what the Black community is dealing with. The Black community is very I might get emotional talking about this. If I do, forgive me. There is a lot of love, a lot of closeness in the Black community. In some, I mean, like the love and the closeness I feel for my family. Yet we are often besieged by outside forces that try to tear us apart. So when I began to write, that's what I tapped into that. And then there was the imagery to me of the sorghum as being something magical that would give you strength. You anoint yourself with it. And also the symbolism of the forever war, because where we are now in this country, and I hate to bring in politics, but I will. You reach what you think is a plateau, and then you're like, oh shit, here we go again. We got to fight this. We got to fight. You know what I'm saying? So I think in a lot of times when we're writing, well, who you are is going to find its way onto the page. Whatever you're dealing with is going to find its way into the page. So that's just my take on what I tapped into when I was writing my story. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Valjean. Nicole, thank you. You were just telling us about the test and why. It's all right. We heard, I believe we heard clearly the part about the origin of it, from your childhood and everything, and
Yep.
why you thought it was important
Yep.
to create. We can
So-
just pick up from there again.
Sure. Really briefly, the story is about love. It's about a royal who has a daughter and he must in love with her, and they've been friends their entire lives, and they're in love with each other. However, the mother doesn't think that Hema is good enough because of her station and because of the way she looks, and so she devises this test where every morning Hema has to go out for 7 days in a row and outrace the Akibu, who are outside this walled citadel. And so she does that. And the mother thinks it's a great test because there's no way he was going to be able to do this. She's overweight. She doesn't look healthy in her mind. And so she thinks, oh, this would be great. Once she fails, I'll be rid of my daughter's unwanted suitor. And my daughter can then focus on marrying someone I want her to marry, of course. And that's the plan. It doesn't always work out that way, of course. But the test for Hema is to A, determine her worth, B, to find inner strength, and 3, because to some degree she agrees with the mother that she's not worthy of the girl's love. And so there's a lot of internal character development here and internal conflict. Also, there's a lot of external conflict with the mother and also with the Akibu. So it's a pretty cool story, I think.
It is a cool story, and I'm so happy I got a chance to read it, and all these other wonderful stories. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you for being patient. Yes.
I was inspired by when Dedren gave me the background to this comic, this world that he created. So I wanted to create a character that seamlessly fit there. And I write glimpses of human emotion. So my characters in my stories are the unexpected you are encountering someone. I want you to feel the fear she felt by being kidnapped in a strange land among things that was there to destroy her. And the only thing that she can connect to bring her home was her sister. And in the middle of this, she was able to channel her to her.
I like that. I like the sisterhood aspect of that story, Violet.
Yeah.
I really like the relationship aspect as well, because usually in my stories, although I write speculative fiction, it's really about the characters and their relationship with other characters and their relationships with themselves. But I also like what you said, Violet, about what Dedren did. He made it so easy for us to write these stories because the world is so robust. There's language and there's place, and there are these amazing women that we could all connect with. And that's why it was a really easy story for me to write. Yeah.
I picked a section of the Bible that hadn't been developed as thoroughly. And so my section is a land by the sea. And so that gave me an opportunity to do some world building within the world. And I based the land off the moors. And so it was really exciting for me because he was like, yeah, I haven't really developed that section yet, but go ahead. And I was like, yes, I get to world build in a world already built. And so it was just a lot of fun developing that world and developing the things that occurred within that walled city right there on the sea. And it's actually based on a real Moorish community. So that was really nice. And I think that Dedren's work for making such an expansive world to begin with made it that much easier for us. I agree.
I totally agree, Nicole. One of the things that was fascinating to me, I went both ways. So when he first approached me and then I went and read, I was like, oh my God, all this world building, how the heck am I going to get my stuff fit in this, right? Where am I going with this? But it was neat because it was so well thought out and so well laid out. You kind of had the idea, and I love the themes. I love the way in which the world building flowed and the characters. And I even bought the comic. I was like, I want to see this. I got to see these people. And I was kind of secretly hoping that the anthology would come out and it would actually be an illustrated anthology, and we would each get our own characters and we could see the world like come alive. You hear me?
Manifest. You speak it into existence. All right. Dedren, you hear that?
hint there.
Illustrated
like collectible posters, right? With the characters, right? Or a deck of tarot cards. That would be amazing.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Oh man, that would be role playing games. Why not?
Yes.
Yeah, I say to Dedren, you have all these characters. What the hell am I going to do? Can I create my own character? He said you can do whatever you want. And that made it amazing.
Yeah, I even brought in the I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this. Arisha. Say it again, Alicia.
Arisha.
I've still. Arishna, is that how you say it?
Orisha.
You mean Arisha?
Thank you. Thank you. Arisha. Oh, she's so pretty. Yeah.
Like Oshun or something like that?
Yeah, I did. Oshun. That was the one I brought in. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I can see that influence. I can see that totally in your story. Oshun.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
I like to create with the loa in the these pronunciations kill me. I'm
You're
sorry.
saying that's correct.
Okay. I like to create, but I'm always very respectful because I'm not a Vodun practitioner. So I want to be very, very careful because I don't want to offend anyone. And actually the only loa whose name I will use from time to time is Papa Legba. He's my favorite. Yeah.
Sheree, I had a question for you. You had an opportunity to read all of our stories. Did you have different emotions as you were reading the stories? What were some of your feelings that, as far as the world and what you saw us actually create?
One of the things I noticed when I was reading is that I felt like if my children were young again, this is a work I would share with them, because I felt that it showed different different representation. It was intersectional. It showed it was intergenerational. It showed that life isn't easy, but if you can challenge yourself, you can overcome fears. I felt like it was a really wonderful work to give young people, and even older people who need that lifting up. It was very good for the self-esteem. So even though there were scary parts of it, there are demons, the the Obiku are coming for you, and even sometimes like in Nicole's story, like people can be scared. I thought that was very a kind of a very devilish thing for the royal to do, to send Hema out there to almost get killed, just to keep her from marrying her daughter. That was terrible, So it shows that we're not flawless. We have human, personalities and weaknesses that we have to work on. But I felt like it was perfect book for particularly Black girls, Black women to read, and for it to be written from the perspective of all these different wonderful, mostly women. The collection is mostly women. We do have some men in the book. They haven't joined us today, but that's really important to see that. Another thing I noticed when I was reading is that the land that you all created, like Nicole's by the water, there's, we have the dust, there's like so much, the desert, we have so much natural environment. And I'm a person, I'm inspired by natural science. I'm inspired by the land and the work. I try to put that in my writing, as well as, like you said, the strong characters, as Eugene was talking about, that we think about. There are also very serious issues in it. It's not a light or fluffy book. There are some humorous parts in it, and but like Kenisha is saying, she's writing themes that I think that people, whether you are used to reading speculative fiction or not, are going to be able to connect with, and it's going to resonate with you on an emotional level. It's a lot of just different work. One of the things I did play around with was the order of the stories, because depending on where you put the stories, you create a different mood in the readers. There's a rhythm to it. How do you want them to enter the world, and what do you want them to feel, and how do you want them to feel sustained, that they can keep reading on if they read it linearly. I don't read anthologies from page 1 to page last. I kind of move around. But if you do move through it, what is the mood that you're setting? And then how do you want them to end? What's the last story? What's the last line of the book that you want them to have before they close it and think on it, So that was something I, playing around with that order, because there were different energies you could create with the stories. Yeah.
I am glad that you mentioned about the young adult, because when I was thinking about this, I looked at the comic, I definitely felt like this was for a younger audience. And so I kind of wrote in that way. And I remember reading the story to my husband, and he said, that's very different, than what you've written before. It's you and it's your voice. But I think I approached it with the idea that I wouldn't say edutainment, but I was feeling like there was a message to be shared or given to a young person in this particular one.
What really struck me when you're all reading was the synergy in the stories. We never saw each other's stories before, but you could see the connection. You could see this is a continuous story, that there's that connection, and that was just marvelous.
I was just typing. I don't know why I'm typing. They are in such conversation. They really are. It was almost as if you were sitting at a retreat together and brainstorming, or in a writer's room working on these stories together. But you really were in your own individual, around the world actually, writing these stories from that Bible that Dedren created, but so uniquely stamped with your work. I'm familiar with Nicole's work, and she writes in a range of genres. You cannot pick one for many of you. You are very talented and what we say, you wear multiple crowns, right? You queens wear a lot of crowns. So you can you can occupy a lot of creative space. But it's just like certain things, signatures. I'm reading more and more, exploring more of Eugen's work, and there's certain things that Eugen does that's very clear in this as well. Valjean, I've been a fan of her for many years. So it's just, and it was just great discovering some of the newer voices new to me. And I look forward to learning more about how you tell stories in a way that you approach your craft. One other thing I want to ask you is about the research. One of my favorite things when I'm approaching a new story, once I figure out what the characters may be, is the research, and always love adding some kind of juicy bit of research in it that maybe the reader would never know, but I know, how I layered it in there. Is there anything interesting or unusual that you learned and discovered, or that you got a chance to kind of dive into when you were working on these stories?
I learned a lot about the Moors. Okay, so the actual citadel and the palace is actually based on a real place in Spain, where the Moors had a palace there. And so all of the descriptions that you see in the story, actually existed in this palace. And they still do. The palace is still there. It's still there. Yeah. And so
for like 800 years. I mean, the fact that we have the Spanish tiles are actually, African tiles.
They are. So yes. So a lot of what you see in Hima's test is based on my research into the Moors. And so I mentioned that earlier, but I wanted something that felt authentic. In Dresden's world, which is also is based on, right? Sorghum is a real thing, and it's a real crop and necessity in certain areas on the continent. And so I wanted to have something that also fits with what he had already built, but was also a little different because, it was brand new.
Thank you. Anyone else had some fun research or even challenging? Something that was tough. I know the Eugen story was very easy for her to write. Anyone else want to talk about the research aspect that you did?
The sorghum, Nicole just mentioned the sorghum, and I did a little research on that because, my story was close to stalks, a sorghum field, and how important it was. And then because I wanted to bring water into the story, then I had to do some research on the richness. So that was, along with the world building that Dedren had done. That's a very extensive, very developed world. So I had to familiarize myself with that in order to write the story.
I added sorghum tea, so I did the research. But it was interesting for me because my husband and I had traveled to Ghana, I think a few months before Dedren asked me to write the story. Oh. So when I thought about the African village that I was working on, I immediately thought about the places that we went in Ghana, which was very interesting. So I kind of went back and looked at pictures of our trip to kind of help me to lay out what that landscape looked like. And in particular, there was a forest that we visited, and it had this landscape that you kind of walked over. They put these bridges across there. And so I was kind of interested. You look down and there's like snakes and all this stuff. And it was so cool. Right. But I set up the track in that kind of environment from what I could remember from Ghana. It was very interesting.
Well, I would say this, the work feels very real. It's a combination not only of the world that you're entering, but how you brought yourselves to it. It is very, very authentic. I feel like it's visual. And so anthology, graphic novel, maybe an animated series, maybe a live series. I don't know, maybe a movie. I've definitely see it, the stories moving on, the characters continuing, being a part of the world. So thank you all for that. I would love for our audience to learn more about your work. where they can get it right now. Of course, our wonderful anthology will be out in September. You'll be able to read and see and experience these stories for yourselves. We hope that you read and discuss it with people. We hope that you review it and give it out as gifts. Teach from it. Vacation Bible schools, camps, and all of that good stuff. Take it with you on your vacations, because it's one of those books that I really feel like is good for young to 80, 85, 100, a large audience. So just say your name of your story again, and then tell us where we can support you in your work, what titles we can look for, and what you're excited about next. That would be wonderful. If you could begin, Violet, that would be wonderful.
You can find me at violetmeyer.com. It was such a pleasure to write Zoe the Unexpected. It was a beautiful challenge, and I'm glad I accepted it. I'm working on a new book called Oracles, and my latest release is Hags, Haints, and Hoodoo.
All right.
You can find me everywhere on social media. And side note, Eugen, your voice is so lovely. If this ever becomes an audiobook, you should be the one to read it.
All right.
Thank you, Violet.
Thank you. All right. Well, Eugen.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Eugene Bacon. I also have a website, eugenebacon.com. And I really connected with this story because my grandmother actually lived in the village. And although I grew up in the city, we'd go to the village to visit her. So sorghum is a natural thing to me, and I really connected with that. And my works, I have The Road to Whoop Whoop, which is a collection of stories, and it's a blend of the African and Australian. And I do have a collection coming up soon called Down to Black Thing, which is something I'm really excited about because it focuses on women and children. And there's the village aspect as well, and the blend of cultures.
And I'm going to plug that Eugen has a story in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, and in the cyberpunk anthology as well. So yeah.
I'm very excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Nicole?
Yeah. All right. So my story in the anthology is called He Must Test, which has fantastic world building and is awesome. If you like fantastic world building, you may want to try my Kingdom of Avis mystery series, the first of which is Kill 3 Birds, and the second of which is A Theft Most Foul. You can find those on Amazon or at NicoleGivensKurtz.net.
Thank you. Thank you. Alicia?
My story was Heartsong and Blade, and you can find me at www.aliciamacala.com, where you will find superheroes, supernatural thrillers, and huntresses. I pretty much like to write, I guess I can't curse, but Black warrior women, but I really want to say kick-ass Black women, right? I also like to riff and talk a lot about current TV shows and all kinds of things that are going on. So if you guys want to come on over and take a look at my blog and listen to my podcast and listen to me read my audiobooks, that would be cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Valjean?
Okay. The name of my story is Pray for Peace, Prepare for War. I just dropped the third novel in my Mona Livelong Paranormal Detective series. It's a story about a sorceress who is also a detective, fighting otherworldly themes. I like to write horror, science fiction, Afrofuturism, you name it. Folks can find me at www.thejeffersandqville.com. I'm also on Amazon and just all over the web. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Thank you. Thank you. Kenisha?
My story is The Rhythm of War, and right now I have out a vampire novel called Blood Debt. You can find that on Amazon, and you can keep up with me at KenishaWilliams.com.
Thank you all so very much for sharing some of your time with us. Really honored to be in your presence and to have had a chance to read your work and to just kind of live in your minds a little bit on the page. It is a very interesting time. I think that this art is very necessary and much needed. So thank you all so much. Sorghum and Spear, right?
Thanks for having us. I appreciate you.
It's a pleasure.
And with that, thank you so much, Sheree, and thank you so much, everyone. It's just listening backstage and being able to just imbibe in the stories that I've had the pleasure to read again and again over this point in time, to see the breadth and energy and just the power of which y'all willed this humble starter story of Sorghum. I'm trying to find the words. It's moving. I mean, I really do want to come with a point of sincere appreciation, because having this type of a pantheon of talent like this, to be able to call upon and just have this level of mastery of not just story but of humanity. And I think y'all really nailed it. That that was always a point of mine with Sorghum is, not focusing on who wasn't there, but who was there. And particularly as we have the image in this world of women, particularly of Black women and women of color, that throughout the diaspora, could support and sustain and thrive. And when I read each of your stories, it just really reinforced just the power of womanhood. And it's just always something that's just mystified me, and just from a point of appreciation and wanting to see those stories on and off the page. Y'all are just such a great representation of my wildest hopes and dreams for this thing. I just want to just say thank y'all again. And
Dedren, we all need crowns. You have to buy every last one of them. Yeah.
I'll skip the crowns with your illustrated novel, right? There we go. So it'll be a package deal, I think, right? So we'll work on that. But with that, again, thank y'all so very much, and likewise, Sheree. Again, just from this was born out of Black Tasticon, y'all. Just we were talking about spaces, and that's another thing we talk about, not only just being able to share our work and share our worlds, but having the spaces to survive and thrive and re-energize. And I just want to give a shout out to Black Tasticon and those founders, Balajakun Ajitade and Milton Davis and so many others that made this space where I could meet a hero of mine like a Sheree in the real world and beseech this woman that I have this idea and maybe that we together could make a thing, and here we are, and I think that we've got the world to go forward. So I know with y'all it'll and Alicia, again, I want to make sure to give you your propers as a founder as well. Thank you. But again, that just kind of shows where together we've got such a fantastic community of talent, and there's really nowhere else to look but within ourselves to be able to tell the stories and be the victors of tomorrow. So with that, I just want to make sure again to thank you, and again, Sheree, again, my honor to you always, for taking the chance to listen to this story and giving us a platform to hopefully do these amazing things together. With that, I'll close this out just to say thank you, and again to everyone, that this anthology is really going to be something for the ages. So with that, we appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
It's coming out during my birthday.
There we go. So, all of those.
I said it's coming out during my birthday.
There you go. So now we got the birthday magic on top of it. We cannot fail. So with that, I want to thank everybody so much for their time and attention. Again, this has been the panel for Sorghum and Spear, The Way of Silk and Stone, with our talented cast of the upcoming anthology. So we want to thank you so very much. ask you to stay tuned as we close out this panel and continue on to celebrate Creative Juneteenth here with the Subsume Summit. Thank you so very much.
Good night. Bye.